And then I get this one call, and it was a call from my mom, and she was like, your grandfather, passed away. Allah yarhamu, back in Bangladesh. This is my dad's dad. And as I'm lowering him into this grave, and then we cover him with the soil, and I look around us, and everyone's just crying. Everyone's just emotional, bro. And in that moment, I think of how insignificant all the things that I occupied my mind with and told myself, oh, I'm going through hell. I believe the Prophet even mentioned, like, remember often the destroyer of all pleasures, which is death, and be around the masajid and be around graveyards more too. You know how we always say, like, when you're dead, all you got is your deeds to show for it? It was like everything just clicked in that moment for me, bro.
So I want to start off. I've got 5 things, and I want you to rank the 5 things from most important to least important, okay? So money, connection and status, health and fitness, connection to Allah, deen, and your family. How would you rank those from most important to least important?
That is a very good question, bro. I have never been asked a question like that. I would definitely put connection to Allah first. I would put family second. I would put health third. Now, I know you said money, but what was the last thing?
So then there's money, and then there's connections and status.
Connections and status. So I would put money, and then at the very bottom, I would put connections and status. Only because of status. If status wasn't in there, I probably would have switched money and connections. Status, to me, has an association with fame. And fame was actually something that the earlier generations of Muslims, the best of our examples, they didn't look at fame as something that should actually be sought after. Obviously, we're doing da'wah and stuff like that, so it's a necessary evil. But to chase fame and social validation, many times it can actually open a can of worms that takes you away from the first thing that I put on the list, which is the connection to Allah.
I'm curious why you think people get it so wrong. Because what I've noticed, I was involved in the self-improvement space for a little bit. Most young guys specifically have the priorities backwards, right? We see chase wealth, chase money, sacrifice everything for money, get a bunch of money, and then you realize you're unfulfilled. Like, why do you think everyone's going about it backwards?
It's definitely because of us being a product of the modern day. It almost reduces you to an individual that is only focused on ourselves. We're selfish. Before, the identities that we would have as men and just as human beings would be father, son, brother, neighbor. As a woman, you would have mother, daughter, sister, grandmother. And now it's all about, who are you? What do you do? Oh, I'm this type of engineer. I'm this PhD. I'm a high-ticket closer, or whatever you want to do. And the world that we live in, it's very fast-paced. It just gets you to focus on yourself, many times at the expense of other people. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, none of you truly believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. Now, this is very heavy because Islam, as he mentioned in another hadith, was only sent here to perfect manners. And when you're careful and cautious about how you are to your brothers and you make sure everybody eats, is a different level of success that you will achieve in the eyes of Allah versus when you're only concerned about yourself. Even from a very young age, whether you look at sports or just academia, they program you to only care about yourself. Whereas Allah in the Quran mentions that we should compete in getting good deeds, the dunya tells you we should compete in these accolades and stripes and one up each other just to get ahead.
I think it's also a very modern construct we've created that when someone else gets more, it means that we're going to get less, right? Like I see on social media, because, some people compete for followers and someone thinks, oh, if this person gets another 1,000 followers, they took 1,000 away from me. And it's like, that's not how it works, right? Everybody can grow. So I'd be curious, how would you break down deprogramming the me mindset, how we've been raised, so we can then not have the scarcity mindset, not be worried about, oh, I got to protect for myself and know that there isn't enough. Allah's the best provider. He's the ultimate provider. Everyone can have everything. Everyone can succeed.
That's another very good question, bro. I would say one of the things that helped me a lot to deprogram that me mindset and focusing on me is to, number one, spend a lot of time around those that have less than you. I believe there's a narration where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, if you're going to compare yourself to anyone, compare yourself to those that are beneath you, as in they have less than you. And when you spend time around that, I went to Africa this one time with my dad. Shout out to my pops. This was about 2 years ago, if not 3 years ago. And we went to Kenya, we went to Tanzania, and bro, we were surrounded by people that they don't even have cell phones. They're literally just they're just wayfarers, bro. They're wandering around. You know, if we look at the average home today in America, and you look at the average home there, bro, Americans would be thinking, man, like, how are they living like this? And no disrespect, but this is just how the modern mentality is. And when I was there, I saw how happy these kids were, how happy these brothers and sisters were. Whether they're Muslim, they're Christian, they have such a nur on their face, this glow on their face. And they had so much. And in that moment, I just couldn't help but think how they don't have 5G. They probably don't even know what 5G is. They're not on the grid. They don't have TikTok and brain rot, yet they're so happy with less. And surrounding myself around people like that, I noticed how much we have and how ungrateful we are. So one of the quickest things to deprogram this me mindset is to surround yourself with those that have less than you, whether it's going to be materials, whether it's going to be money, status, dunya. And then you quickly realize how much we have and how much we actually don't need. Now, that's obviously a separate conversation, but it's to show how grateful we should be, but how grateful we're not. And Allah says, you know, if you're grateful, I will increase you. So it's definitely something that I recommend everybody to do. I mean, you know, we take an exit off the highway now, and we see this homeless, you know, war vet with a coffee mug with a cardboard sign, and we're so numb and desensitized to it, so we just keep driving to our destination. But sometimes pulling over and just having like a 5-minute chat with this guy, wallah, like this is something that none of us do on a day-to-day basis, but taking moments like this, it just shows you how selfish we actually are. And one of the things that I personally realized, just like you said earlier a few minutes ago, that, you know, there's plenty to go around, there's plenty of money. Just because you're up doesn't mean it's at the expense of someone else having to be down. So when you realize that Allah is Ar-Razak, Allah is abundant, Allah is an abundant Lord. He's somebody that is, you know, very gracious and very giving. He's very, there's nothing that he's going to hold back if he doesn't have to or want to. That's when you realize that there's plenty for everybody to have.
Mm-hmm. What did you mean when you said we have so much that we don't need?
When I mentioned we have so much that we don't need, I mentioned that we came into this world with nothing. And when you look at how, when the Prophet ﷺ made hijrah, you know, and when he left everything, when you look at how a lot of people, you know, in the Salaf, in the earlier generations of Islam, the pious predecessors, they wouldn't have this attachment to material world, dunya things. All they had were themselves, and that's all they need. All they needed to rely on was Allah. And they looked at themselves as the utility, not specific things, gadgets, dunya. You know, I was traveling to Iceland with Angel and one of our other boys. You know, may Allah guide him to Islam. This brother was not Muslim. So I remember when I found Angel at the airport. He had this little like tiny backpack, bro, and there was like nothing in there. It was like 2 outfits, and there was like some almonds and some really like high calorie dense foods for his travels. And then he had, I believe he had like his passport, and that was it. And then like a charger. And I was like, bro, we're here in Iceland. Like, what are you doing? Why don't you have everything else that you need? And my other boy, you know, the one that was not Muslim, he had like a whole big suitcase. I was kind of in the middle. I just had a carry-on, but he had a whole suitcase. He had all these extra things and all these different outfits. He had like an AM outfit and a PM outfit. And then he had like 5 different hair products and all these aftershaves and different colognes. And there's so much that he brought, bro. He had all these books. He didn't even read any of these books on the trip. And I was wondering, I was like, why did he bring so much? You know, and the older that I get, I mean, I'm only 28, but the more experience that I have in life, the more I realize that this whole hoarding mentality, I don't know where this started, but we all cling onto this. And Allah says in the Quran, you know, talking about, you know, who, you'll see these people holding on to and clinging on to their life unlike any other people. And if we were to tell them that they would have 1,000 years, they still wouldn't have changed. And these are the people that are misguided. Many of us nowadays, we hold on to all these material things and we think that we need all these things. I mean, bro, just as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at my desk right now and I see like 90% of the things on my desk I don't need. Yet I keep it here because I tell myself I might need it one day, or something might come up and I'll just hold on to it. It's like random papers and letters and mail and things like that. We really don't need these things. And I feel like the more clutter that we have in the dunya, it allows our mind to not be clear and clean so that we can actually have taqwa, we can actually have God consciousness. And when you look at the Muslims back then, bro, they didn't have anything, yet they were conquering everything.
Yeah, and we've tied all of our happiness and pleasure towards getting more, right? So instead of solving our internal problems and issues that we're facing, we think getting a new pair of shoes, okay, I'll be happy for a day, then in a week, I'll repeat this process. And what you said is actually so applicable to me right now. I'm prepping to do a whole year of traveling. In like a month, I'm leaving, then I'll be traveling for a year. And I've done a lot of traveling previously. You know, I brought 2 suitcases before, brought a backpack and a suitcase. I'm like, this time, I'm going to bring a backpack that can take me to 12 countries. I'm going to have 5 of the same shirt. I'm going to have 5 of the same pair of pants. And I've been like packing this. And while I've been discarding all these things I don't need, I've come up with bags of all this stuff. And I was just looking at it. I was just like, this is just consumerism of the dunya, right? You think we need these things, but in the reality, like you said, all it does is take away from what's actually important. It doesn't benefit us. So I'm curious about something. You used to do the Three Muslims podcast, right? What happened? Where'd it go?
And you're putting me on the spot there, bro. The $1 million question, what happened to the Three Muslims? So here's what I'm allowed to say, legally speaking. No, I'm just playing. There's nothing, no drama.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, we started the Three Muslims as, 3 brothers that we had a goal initially, right? We wanted to invite other people into our conversations about Islam that we were already having. So we would have these calls regularly and we would talk about the deen. And over time, we realized, well, imagine how much value we're getting if just one extra person was a participant in the Zoom call, not even like an active person that's engaging in the discourse. And then we realized, why don't we just record it and just start putting it on? And instead of doing audio, let's do video so they could feel like they're doing it. Because the first podcast we did, we got a comment, someone saying that, I don't really have friends. And I feel like after school, I just want to grab my snack and just listen to you guys and watch you guys. And I just feel like I have this friend group of Muslims. And things just popped off. The rest is history. Now, over time, we realized, and there was nothing really that happened per se, but the direction that I was headed into, the direction that Arami was headed into, the direction that Anha was headed into, we were all growing close to Allah at our own kind of pace and style. And we just realized, as a mutual kind of decision that we weren't headed in the same direction anymore. And it wasn't anything bad. It was very civil. We still talk till today. I talk to Rami, I talk to Anhel and all that. And I'm sure, inshallah, they talk to one another too. But it made more sense for us to not continue, at least at that point. Allah knows what could happen tomorrow. But there were a lot of things that we wanted to grow in our individual lives, a lot of personal things going on as well. So that's the long story short. There's no like drama or, something hit the fan, or there was like one thing that blew up out of proportion. We're all brothers. We all, there's no animosity between us, alhamdulillah. And, I look forward to continuing the dawah. Honestly, I don't want anything to stop just because the Three Muslims stopped, but it was definitely something that was a one of one. So you did get me a little nostalgic with that question.
Yeah, it was a great podcast. So after every single interview you did, after every single conversation on that podcast, talking to many different Muslims from many different backgrounds, what do you think was the number one thing that you learned?
The number one thing that I learned
from the entire podcast, from all the conversations, from all of the interviews?
That's a good question too. And you are a very good podcaster. Allah Mubarak. May Allah increase you in this in the Canyon Mim show. One of the things I learned, there's many things I learned, subhanAllah. It would be very one-dimensional for me to say there's only one thing. But one thing that stands out to my mind till today, and this is something that I regularly journal about every now and then when I have the chance to, it's that how different we all are in our past. You know, you can call it jahiliyyah, you could call it, you know, our past life, and, you know, before guidance, before our realizations and all that. But then how similar we are at the end of the day when we do come towards Allah as a servant of Allah. You know, I've met brothers that are selfish, and they were always ones that were focused on themselves. And after Islam, bro, they're fighting to pay the bill. They're super humble. They're always looking out for everybody else before themselves. You could tell they want the last slice of pizza, but they're going to make sure that you eat it, and they're going to act like they're full, even though you know they're not. I've met brothers that are super arrogant and narcissistic, and they only care about themselves. And then after Islam, bro, they're humble. They just don't care about anything else anymore. I've met people that always like to gossip and backbite about other people. Like, you know, there's people that you talk to, Allahumma barik, we always talk about ideas. And then there's some people you talk to and they're only talking about other people. The latest like thing that happened, something happened at work, or their wife did something they didn't like. They're always complaining about someone, right? After Islam, that's gone. So it just seeing how Allah created us on like the fitrah, and, you know, essentially to sum it up, the one thing that I learned is how perfect the term revert is, because you don't convert, you don't assimilate, you don't transform into something else. You come back into how you were supposed to be all along, how you were programmed to be, how you were created and designed to be, which is just a slave of Allah who is humble, realizes that he is nothing. He is not the center of the universe. He's like a little cog in the wheel in the big grand scheme of things. And how powerful Allah is, in that everyone comes from all these different things and converge into this one path towards the pleasure of Allah. It's beautiful, bro.
You know what I've noticed? We've been talking for like 16 minutes, and you have a very consistent tonality and a very consistent manner. Most people, when they speak, and I even do this myself, it fluctuates a lot. And it usually comes from people who are more sporadic and more open loops in their life, versus when people speak very consistent, very grounded. It's usually when they have a very grounded life. Do you feel like you're grounded?
Do I feel like I'm grounded? I would say that I'm human in the sense that I'm not always as consistent as I can. However, looking back at earlier years and stages of my adult life, I wasn't as grounded as I am now, because there were areas in my life that I did not have satisfaction or control in. So what I mean by that is most people are living as victims, if we're being honest with ourselves. They have things that they dislike about their life. Maybe someone that they're in a relationship with that they should not be with, and they should cut that off. Maybe a job where they're slaving away and getting pennies to the dollar, and they know they're being exploited and taken advantage of. Maybe there's a conversation with a loved one that has to be had, but they're just avoiding it out of fear of what's going to happen with that conversation. So a lot of people, myself included in the past, we would have all these things in our life that we are not addressing and we are not taking care of. And we're just coasting by, almost like a bystander. And we don't realize how much it lowers our self-respect when we assess ourselves on a subconscious level every day. And a lot of the life experiences that I had, alhamdulillah, through the guidance of Allah alone, I realized that the most important thing that we can do is know that death is certain. But the thing is, we don't know when that will approach us. There's a question mark on that for all of us. So if we were to expire at any given moment in time, would we be ready to meet Allah? Would we be satisfied with our affairs? Would we be content with our deeds and where we stand? Because at that time, there's no, oh, Allah, send me back. I promise I'm going to do X, Y, Z. So adopting this mindset that this could happen at any given moment, of course, it's easier said than done. But if it happens literally tonight or tomorrow, am I satisfied? If I'm not, then what are we playing all these games for? Why are we waiting for this other person to reach out to us, even though we should reach out to them because we feel bad about something that happened and maybe something got blown out of proportion and we could have just apologized. And of course, we tell ourselves that, oh, they did something wrong too, so I'm gonna wait for them. Why should I always make the first move? And this arrogance and ego and just attachment to just your nuffs, bro, as a man, this causes a lot of emotional instability and turbulence. And I believe this is strongly one of the things, or I believe strongly that this is one of the things in today's world that is plaguing men. We have become very shackled and enslaved to our emotional vicissitudes. We have good feelings in one day. On another day, we have negative feelings. The day we don't feel good, we decide, today it's just going to be an off day or a flow day. And the realization that I had was men back then, they didn't base their actions on how they feel. Because as men, we are not going to always feel on point to provide, to protect, to maintain and uphold our responsibilities, to keep closer ties of kinship and look after those under our responsibility. But we still have to, bro. Perhaps it was, when you get married and you have kids, it does change you, bro, as a man. It's not something that, now you could just kind of, F off and go into another country just to detach and take a spiritual break. And, there's actual consequences to you being enslaved to your emotions. So I believe every man should definitely strive for this groundedness by fixing the things in their life that they are not fixing, taking care of the things that they know they should take care of. A lot of people listening to this might be asking, because a lot of my clients, when I do the self-improvement coaching, they ask, where do I start? Bro, most of us know what has to get done. We just don't have time to sit down for 5 minutes with our own thoughts because we're running away. It's all escapism and just looking at all the problems in our life that should be fixed. It's all out there, bro, for you. So I would say that I am somewhat grounded. I'm more grounded than I used to be years ago. And I think it's a good thing. Stoicism and being emotionally calm, someone that doesn't fold under pressure. This is something that the world is lacking men like.
The hardest part's confronting it. Like you said, we all know objectively anyone who's facing an issue in their life, they know what the issue is. Like we are usually the person who gives the best advice to ourselves. Going external is great because we hear someone else say it, but the majority of the time we know what it is, but we can't confront it. Can you walk us through how do we get past step one? Because step one's the hardest part. Once you have momentum, it's so much easier to succeed or to hit your goals or to stay more disciplined. Like you said, if you have a kid and a family, you have people who rely on you. Or if you have employees, right? If you have people who require you to work so they can pay your family, you kind of, if you're off one day, you still got to do it. But when it's just you, no one relies on you, your life's in shambles, you know you need to change, but you can't confront yourself. How do you confront yourself?
How do we confront ourselves? I'll be honest, bro. There is very little that we can do in this modern day. Not to be nihilistic, not to be black-pilled, but most of us are cooked. We live in a world where we wake up, we're snoozing 1 hour in. So we pretty much wake up 1 hour after we intended to last night. Probably missed Fajr, right? Now we're somehow, getting ready. I'm just being honest, sloppily getting ready for work to go to a job that you really don't care about or like, or running to class for a degree that you don't really know why you're studying for an industry that's going to be replaced by the time you graduate by AI, if only you knew. And then you finally get to work and you're tired and you're buzzed and wired from the triple shot of Yahud that you just had on your way. And then you have meaningless tasks, but call it work for the entire day. And then you come home, you're already tapped out. You've wasted your day. You've been sedentary. You didn't look after yourself spiritually at all. And you have 5 minutes before Maghrib. So you're like, oh snap, I didn't pray Asr. So you just quickly make wudu and then you pray Asr. And then it's Maghrib, but then you're like, oh, what time's Isha? How long can I delay Maghrib for? This is the average day, bro. Most of us are just coasting through life, and the modern world is made in a way that cultivates you from not being able to confront yourself for step one, as you said. The solution is deliberately breaking and detaching away from this. And there's times, bro, there's like me in my life, I'll just give an example. I'm very much in this rat race. It's very hard to escape that at times, but deliberately, even if it's 2, 3 times a year, just taking a step back. It might be a week, it might be 2 weeks. Last time I took a step back, it was 2 months from end of September to now. I just took a huge step back and spent a lot of time with myself and Allah. And it's good. It's a little reset that you can do to realize what's important, where am I headed, what actually matters, and what am I wasting my time with. Deliberately setting that, because waiting for this is not going to happen. It's kind of like somebody that wants to feel closer to Allah, and they're like, yeah, I'll just pray when I feel closer to Allah. Like when I feel that iman, then I'm going to start praying and dialing in. It's like, no, bro, dial in, and it's through that you're going to feel close to Allah. Taking that first step, that deliberate step, because if you don't, you're just basically telling yourself, I'm going to be a victim, and I'm going to sit back, lean back, and recline in my chair, and I'm going to wait for every independent variable that has nothing to do with me, that's out of my control, to essentially all enmesh into this perfect way to facilitate me from finally making this change or to detach. It's like, no, bro, you're going to be waiting another year or 2 years or 10 years. Just, I have this in front of me. I usually keep it on my desk. So the English translation of the Quran, to anybody, I highly recommend reading the Quran in your own language. I'm not a native Arabic speaker. I was obviously born in Bangladesh, but I immigrated here when I was 5. I grew up most of my life here in the West, in Canada, and now I live in the States. English is my ideal, like, default language, my native tongue, even though Bengali is obviously my real language that I still speak. And when you read the Quran, the word of Allah, in English, obviously it's not the exact same as Arabic, but for those of us that don't speak it, I highly recommend you to read it in English so you actually understand what you're saying. And then underneath the Quran, this, just a journal, bro. Just having, a book, it could be a piece of paper. I highly recommend it to be something that you write with pencil, not like your notes app on your iPhone. And just taking a step back from time to time and just writing your thoughts. The mind, subhanAllah, is so profound at putting these things down when you give yourself the time. The Prophet ﷺ would go on top of Jabal al-Nur, the mountain in the cave of Hira, and he would meditate. And that was exactly the same spot that he received revelation, subhanAllah, the first time. And this is something that we don't do nowadays, bro. We tell ourselves that meditation is new age spirituality. It's not congruent with Islam. I'm not talking about those weird, meditative postures and humming and all those chakra positions and all that. I'm talking about just sitting down, tadabbur, reflection in Arabic, and just reflecting about everything in your life. It's so sad, bro, that sometimes when I'm trying to deprogram a brother and when I'm coaching them and they're like, where do I start? What do I write about? And I'm like, that's exactly the opposite of what you're trying to do right now. Like you shouldn't be having this one thing or prompt. It should just be writing, just literally letting yourself exhaust everything and just release everything into this page.
Yeah, it's the difference of living life passively versus actively. I think you hit the nail right on the head with the fact that people let life direct where they go. The average person lives, and then what happens in that day dictates where they end up. I think it's very rare that you have people who decide where they're going to go in life. And obviously, that's all in control by Allah, and He decides exactly what happens, but we still have to tie our camel, right? We still have to put in our part. Risk is written, but we still have to put in the work. We still have to do our part. And I think most men would be so surprised how much their entire life would be changed if all they did was stop letting life dictate where they go and they started following a structure, right? What percentage of men do you think follow a structure in their life? Imagine you start following a structure. This is exactly what I'm going to do today. This is my calendar. Regardless of how I feel, I will do this at XYZ time. I think that would completely change your life, right? Because that's how you remove the emotions. When you're a victim to your emotions, well, I don't feel like it. I don't want to get it done. Versus it's on the calendar. It happens right now, right? We had this scheduled. It's not like all of a sudden a minute before this podcast, I got a headache. I don't want to do it. But that's the reality of most men.
Let me be honest with you, bro. I'm not saying this to, make you feel any type of way or anything like that. But I want this to be known, obviously, for anybody that is tuning in. This is the third time that we rescheduled this podcast, and it was because of me. I take full accountability for this, and I've never met, brothers that are nowadays are very impatient and things like that. And Kenyon's been very like understanding and patient. We booked this podcast out, and we rescheduled. Something happened. Life happened. Obviously, kids, family, hospital, a lot of personal things been going on. But today, this is the third time that we rescheduled it, right? Now, I have a real job, all right? A lot of brothers are influencers now for a living. And they're Instagrammers. They don't have any real world trade or skill or anything like that. Now, whatever have you, in my actual day-to-day job, it is a little bit flexible. I work in home improvement. So I work about anywhere from 60 to 90 hours a week. And this is outside of everything else, like the YouTube, the businesses, the coaching, and all that. So sometimes, and I handle business, it's very good at times, but with any business, sometimes it's not good. So anyway, today I had, when I woke up, I had a couple of these appointments, and a lot of them were actually my team that handles all the scheduling and confirming and all that. It was around the time that this podcast was scheduled. And this is the third time that we rescheduled. So I got this voice in my head, and I'm sure everybody gets this voice in their head that, these are good opportunities for business and growth. And these are like, there's two different homes that we had today, pretty big homes, and there's a lot of stuff that we had to get done. So it would have been a good opportunity. Now, of course, I can reschedule it and I can do the podcast with you. But a lot of the times, we get these thoughts in our mind that's like, oh, we're not going to get these opportunities again. Or this is more important than something that I told him. It might even be normal in positions like this to tell yourself, you know what? I already rescheduled it 3 times. What's another time? What's the 4th time? But the thing is, the first 2 times that I rescheduled with you were literal life and death. They were literal medical emergencies. This time, it's like something that can wait. And while I'm going through this test today, because obviously we all go through these tests every single day, I'm like, I can either reschedule with you a 3rd time. This time, in the past, it was genuinely like a very, medical imminent thing. This time, it was going to be over work. I would have told you what it was too, just like work conflict. But I told myself, I'm like, bro, Allah is ar-Razak. Allah is the one that provides. Whether I reschedule these appointments or not, it doesn't matter. The angel that writes down the 4 things when you're conceived at the time, like your time of death, like your lifespan, what your, predestination is going to be, Jannah or Jahannam. The 4 things. One of those things is going to be a risk. And no soul shall taste death until all of their provisioning has been given and granted to them. So it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, your word is your bond. If you do not stand behind your word, you literally are nothing. And as men today, it's so common for us to just change everything with our emotions. So then I was like, I spoke to, the team and everything like that. I'm taking a few hours, obviously, to come home. Did this podcast with you, currently doing it. And then I'll go back, and it's no big deal. Because my word to you, especially after you've already accommodated 3 times, is more important to me. And it's something that is more important to Allah. And not as in it'll change Allah's status at all. Because if everyone obeyed Allah, it would not raise him in the slightest. But more so, who am I going to be in the eyes of Allah? How would I view myself even as myself if I rescheduled the 4th time? This time it would be the only actual unjustified type of rescheduling. And I believe that a lot of men nowadays, they're coasting through life, and they're letting their emotions and life circumstances dictate, like you said, when they throw in the towel. But it doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes, bro, I'll come home after like an 18-hour day and I'm so tired, and then I just want to go to sleep and do nothing. But then there's like some stuff around the house that I gotta get done, and there's some more stuff or a video I gotta edit, and I'm already like having that waswas. Oh, I should just sleep and just so cozy. You know, it's winter, right? I naturally run cold, so I see like I set the thermostat to 76. Some of y'all might be like, "Yo, that's too hot," and then I'll go into the blanket, into the bed, and I'll just like I just want to cuddle up and just sleep for like 6 hours until Fajr. But then it's like if I have a video that has to get done, and this is the time that I told myself I'm going to get it done by, I have to get it done. It does not matter how I feel. It does not matter how I emotionally feel or how tired I am or lazy or apathetic. It's okay to feel these things, but what's not okay is to allow that to dictate your actions. Musa alayhi salam probably felt scared, bro, if we can even say that, and anxious and unsure when he was going to confront Fir'aun, right? And he made that dua to Allah, obviously the famous dua that we know, Ya Allah, to, you know, untie the knots in our chest, allow us to have clear and effective communication. He didn't really know how the conversation was going to go, but he relied on Allah and he did it anyway. You know, a lot of prophets and messengers in the stories that we've been told show that it's okay to feel these things. Even the Prophet ﷺ, many times, I mean, especially when he got revelation and he came home and met up with Khadija radiallahu anha, his wife, may Allah be pleased with her. He was a little bit shaken up, right? And it's okay to have these emotions, but you got to keep your head on the goal, on the mission. This is something that I find is extremely lacking in today's ummah. Muslim men used to be the standard of masculinity, of dominance, of saying something and getting it done, following through on your word. And now it's like this shawarma belly, lazy, apathetic guy who is, no, I'm just being, 100% with you, bro. Like, this is the average Muslim, bro, unfortunately. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was narrated to have his chest in line with his belly. You know, he didn't really have a gut. And his, broad shoulders and big calves, and he had really good physique, Allahumma barik, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this was into his 50s, bro, and 60s. And now you got brothers that are like 20 years old in their sexual prime, like a vegetable, and I get it. The average is lower and lower every day, but why are we succumbing to that? Why don't we set ourselves to the standard that Allah has set for us, not this dunya? I went on the weight scale the other day, and it has like body fat and BMI and all that, and then I clicked on the app, bro. The metric or parameter for a normal BMI cut off at like 20 a few years ago. Same app, bro. They changed the metric to 23 now. 23 is like the upper limit for a normal BMI. Why are we changing that? That used to be considered obese 3 years ago on the same app. But now we're changing the goalposts just to make it easier to be normal, even when you're overweight. And this is not me body shaming, because I know someone's going to be like, oh, what happened to body positivity? I'm just saying, like, why are we changing the goalposts, bro?
They did the same thing with testosterone. If you go to any major doctor in America in your 20s, 300 testosterone's good. You're fine. You're all good. I think one of the biggest things that leads to the downward spiral is the constant breaking of our word, not only to other people, but actually more importantly to ourselves, right? Because you cannot have your word as a man be ironclad to someone else if it's not ironclad to yourself, right? If you snooze your alarm every single day and you miss Fajr every single day and you don't finish your to-do list every single day, what are you doing? You're programming your mind. You're telling your subconscious, I can't trust myself. You're telling your subconscious, if crap hits the fan, I cannot rely on you to get it done, right? And how do you get depressed? How do you have no motivation? When you don't like yourself. And you're not going to like yourself if you don't trust yourself. So it's like, that's one of the easiest ways that a man can gain confidence is know he can rely on himself. And you can do this, you can almost gamify it. You can start really small. Set a bunch of small tasks that you know you can get done, right? It's in Atomic Habits. That book, really good book, breaks down how to build habits. Say you want to start working out. Don't build this massive routine to work out 6 times a week and all these different lifts and, push, pull, split. Say, I'm going to do 10 push-ups every morning. You can do that. Okay. Say you want to stretch. Say you're going to stretch for 60 seconds. It's not about how much you're going to get from that 10 push-ups, but it's about over a month of saying you're going to do something and then doing it. You program your mind. If I say I'm going to do something, I will end up doing it. Right. And then bigger things. Okay. Now I'm going to work out. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do that. And you stack the ability to rely on yourself. Why do people have so much stress unnecessarily? They don't trust themselves. They don't trust that they can make it work.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that, bro. There's a concept that I use with my clients called the mental scoreboard. And it's basically this like mental ratio that we have of how many times we follow through on our word versus how many times we went back on our word. And the average guy probably has a ratio of like a 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 10,000, meaning they've not followed through on their word 100 times more than the times they have followed through on their word. And because of that, when you close your eyes and you just appraise yourself subconsciously, you know that you're just likely not a person to get something done when you set out to do it because of what you've done in the past. So when you start on this journey, it's going to be hard because, like you're saying, you gamify it, set out on this almost mission to say things and do it. There's a verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, tells us, why do you say that which you do not do? Most hateful to the sight of Allah is that you say which you do not do. So it's not going to be easy when you set out on this quest to now say what you do and follow through on your word and actually walk the walk after you talk, especially because you have this history of not doing it. And your body might even resist it. And shaitan loves that. Bro, you were going to be shaitan's playground for the first bit. And he's about to milk it. But sticking through with it, no matter how difficult it gets, you will invert that ratio on your mental scoreboard one day, inshallah. It might not happen overnight. You didn't get to this state overnight. Probably took you a long time of not following through on your word. So allow yourself the grace of having a little bit of time to undo that, inshallah. And then you start getting into the net positives, and then your life will compound, inshallah, after that.
Mm-hmm. And you have to remove all of the easy pleasure and softness in our life. Like you said, when you were traveling and seeing people who were less fortunate, I had the same experience, when I was in different countries. Specifically, when I was in Pakistan, I was around a lot of people. One time that stands out to me is there was a time I was on a highway in Pakistan and I was with like 10 Pakistani guys who their life is they sell fruit on the back of this wagon, hitched up to a donkey. They do this 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what they know. They don't have the comfort of binge watching their favorite Netflix show and eating ice cream and sitting on the couch and relaxing, right? That's like what kings did 1,000 years ago. And if we don't engineer pain and suffering and hardship into our own life in this modern, especially these first world countries, it is just a recipe to become incredibly soft and to break our word for ourselves, right? It's like we have to engineer pain into our life to become successful, I think.
Absolutely, bro. I went to the Jabal al-Nur, to the cave of Hira, where the Prophet ﷺ got revelation. SubhanAllah, like, what did I do in this life of my sinful life to even deserve for Allah to allow me to witness that? And it was a very treacherous climb. I hiked that up with my mom, Allahumma barik, may Allah bless her. And bro, she's a warrior. Like, she went up on that with me. She's like, no, I'm not going to quit right now. It was like straight Iman, bro. You're like just juiced off of that Iman. Now, we climbed that broken stairs, and I'm sure you can imagine that. And we finally get to the top. It was a very like strenuous trek up the mountain. And it was like sweltering hot, bro, in Arabia. Now, once we got up there, we looked at each other. We prayed Salat al-Asr, I believe. And then we thought to ourselves, how did the Prophet ﷺ do it? The best of creation, SubhanAllah, the seal of the prophets. How did he do it with no stairs and none of the things we have today? SubhanAllah. He just did it. And then as I'm thinking that, you know who I see, bro? I see an old man climbing to the top, right? And he has a crate of like 30 water bottles on his back. And he is like, they're like nice cold water, where once he came to the top, you could see a little bit of the condensation. It's probably, heating up from all that heat. And there's like a little like shack, like a snack bar. And he puts that into this like fridge. I don't even know how there's electricity there, but at least it looked like a fridge. It had like the doors and everything. I don't know if it's working. It's probably just to keep the heat away with the shade. And he just put those bottles there. And then he sat on this like little stool and he started, shop for the day. And I'm there like, buddy just brings up, Unk is bringing 30 bottles of water every day. He probably looked like he was 90, bro. No cap. And he just does this every single day because he probably has to provide for his family. Otherwise, no one just wakes up every day, money, not being an object, and just decides to climb, Jabal al-Nur to sell water, to hikers. Clearly, he had to do it because it was important to him. And when I saw that, I was like, subhanAllah, he's been doing this every single day. He's conditioned himself to do it. Yet today, at the slightest bit of rejection or difficulty, we give up and we have a mental breakdown nowadays. Wallah, like the next generation of boys, I really do fear for what's to come. But as a Muslim, all we can do is change ourselves and try our best to change the people that we come into contact with, inshallah, to challenge them to be better as men.
What's the biggest piece of advice you'd give your 18-year-old self?
The biggest piece of advice to give to my 18-year-old self. SubhanAllah. You know what I would do, bro? I would actually not tell him anything. I would just let him figure it out like I did. And it was all part of the process. Allah ended me to where I am today with the highs and the lows. Of course, I could tell you material things, like probably would have told myself to spend a little bit less money on wasteful purchases, and to be a little bit more smart with my time, or start YouTube earlier, because, we all have that voice in our head where it's like, is the market saturated? Is there even an ability to be a one of one in this industry? Isn't there already too much competition? And then when we see people start YouTube, and it's like, bro, in a year, they grew so much. It was like, oh, I should have just started a year ago. But then we just keep delaying it. So I probably would have started YouTube a little bit earlier. But these are all like dunya things. I probably wouldn't have told myself anything, bro, looking back, because I would want myself to go through everything that Allah has laid for me to get to where I am today, including having not been more financially savvy over time, because it's through that I got to where I am today. It's through the mistakes that I became who I am today. The little that I know, the little experience that I have, it only came through that experience. As they say, bro, good decisions come from good experience, but good experience comes from bad decisions. And I had to go through that to end up at this point today. So I probably would not tell myself when I was 18 anything. I probably wouldn't want to hear it either. When I was 18, I really thought I had life figured out, and I was arrogant. And the older you get, the more you realize that you actually don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, the hardship is how we grow, right? If we never faced anything hard, we never have the opportunity to build the callous in our mind to persevere. If we never go through any traumatic experiences, we never shape a character of someone that can be respected, right? If we're given everything and we're told how to avoid every single mistake in life, and we know how to navigate every possible problem that could come up, we'll never have an opportunity to become a better person, right? It's why I think one of the worst things that you can do for a young man is to give them everything, right? Women, different conversation. But as a young man, you got to go figure it out. For me, one of the best times in my entire life, and one of the most growth-oriented periods I ever went through, was when I was traveling, and the very first time I left high school and I flew across the globe, and I had 1 month till I was either homeless in a foreign country or I figured it out, right? It was just like, and I sat, there was a conscious period, 1 week. I was like, okay, if this doesn't work, could I do it? Could I be homeless in this country? And would I be able to get through it? And I was like, yeah, I will. It's an experience, right? But imagine if I had some big trust fund and I was like, okay, I'll just go traveling. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens. I would never have an opportunity to grow. and we need the hardship to become a better person. So it leads me to you want us to add something?
No, I was gonna tell you that looking back at the life of the Prophet Sallallahu, at all the men, one that comes to mind is Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Yusuf alayhi salam, Yusuf, Prophet Joseph, to some of the Christians that might be listening to this, peace be upon him. He had a life of hardship. A lot of the prophets and messengers had lives of hardship, but Yusuf alayhi salam, specifically as mentioned in the Quran, the things that he's been through, I'm sure it led him to where he is or was towards the end of his life. That success only came from the hardship. There's a red-pilled belief. I hate this term, bro. I hate our pill with a passion. But there's this one thing that they always say where it was like, women are born with value, men have to create their value. Now, I'm not going to speak on the women are born with their value. I think what aspect of their chastity the men's right activists are talking about. I think it's evidently clear, abundantly. But for the men that they have to create their value, I want to focus on this part. It's absolutely true. We really do have to create our value. Men are born today on hard mode, bro. The stuff they add in our water, the stuff they add in our food, the stuff that they program our minds with, the nafs, the haram that we view on a day-to-day basis. May Allah guide us to the straight path, bro. All these things are literally here to just drag you down into the pits of hell. The Prophet mentioned there's going to come a time where holding on to your religion is like holding on to hot coal. I believe we're living in these times right now. And the hard part is when we have to take a step back and realize the world is not your friend, bro. If you allow yourself to be a product of society, you're not going to have much in the afterlife, at least nowadays. Let's leave it at that. So realizing that it's through discipline, having a hard life, and being tested and trialed, because Allah loves who He tests for sure. And we have to believe that, and we have to act accordingly to that, that you will then look back at your life at a later part and then realize how much it was worth it and how that shaped where you are today. The most simple example of this is working out. You're stressing yourself and you're causing micro tears in your muscle fibers, and that's what's going to help you regain that. And it's called hypertrophy, but it won't occur without that hard kind of input and breakdown. But I think you were gonna mention something before I started speaking.
I'll add one more thing on what you just said, which I think is one of the biggest misconceptions that young men have. And I've been very blessed, alhamdulillah, to realize this at a young age because I am very young. It's kind of a full circle to what we were talking about in the beginning.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
Allah Mubarak, bro.
I've just been very blessed to have a lot of condensed experiences in a small period of time. And that all came from one time when I was 18 years old, when I met Jewel, as well, for the first time. He told me something and it just stuck with me for so long. He's like, Canyon, between now and 25, you need to focus on building your character. You need to focus on experiences. You need to focus on doing things that are going to add sustenance to the person you are. Because so many people get to 30 and they're shallow. And they're shallow because there's nothing backing who they are. They've not been through anything that makes them unique, that makes them respectable, that molds them into a person. And Jewel is, may Allah bless him and give him 10 times more, someone who I really respect because he's one of the best examples of made it, balance. Right? He didn't get super wealthy in his 20s. And then that kind of corrupted him as we see all these Miami kids, right? And their fancy cars. I wouldn't want that life. There's no part of that life I would want, right? But you build your character. And then when you get money and you get status, you get success, you get fame, whatever that is, that gets amplified through your character. But if you don't have strong character and then you get a bunch of money, you get a bunch of fame, all that means is you're just a famous, rich person with no character. And at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, right? So what I did is I just sought out unique experiences that would cause me to grow. So shout out Jewel for that. And the question was for you in your entire life, what is one of those things that you've been through, one of those hardships you had to face, and how did you grow from it? What did you learn from it? How did it make you a better person?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, bro. There was a time when I was 2023. So I was 20, probably
26?
26. It was 26 or 25 and some change at the time. And at this time, I I was going through this tough personal thing in my life, which was very difficult, bro. A lot of people that have gone through things like what I've been through in this, it's a pretty common thing, but it's very difficult to go through, especially when, you know, Allah is involved and you try to do everything right. But it was very difficult, bro, to say the least. And in that time, when I was going through all this, I was also being tested a lot in like my work and my health and this. And I get this, I moved back to live with my parents at the time. I, many times when life changes, sometimes you just want to be around your roots and gain a little bit of stability and momentum back. So I went home. I was with my parents, and this was for a little brief like period of time. I just want a little break from everything, right? Now, in that, I'm in my room that I grew up in, and it's the same bed, same everything, and I'm just finally sitting down, and I'm thinking, alhamdulillah, I finally get to take a little bit of time to focus on all the things that I'm focusing on. I have Umrah coming up. That was the first time I met Jewel as well. SubhanAllah. Speaking of the man, may Allah bless him. I finally accepted that after all the things that I've been through, I'm finally going to have time now to just rest and heal. It's kind of like your post-workout meal. You had the workout, now you're gonna finally eat. I'm gonna reward myself. I'm gonna just chill out. Everything's gonna be mellow, and it'll work itself out. And I can spiritually heal. And then I get this one call, and it was a call from my mom, and she was like, "Your dada, your grandfather, passed away. Allah yarhamu, back in Bangladesh. This was my dad's dad." And I was like, "What?" Like, I just couldn't accept it, because it's kind of like, when it's with your parents, your grandparents, your family members, you just get so accustomed to living life with them that you almost get entitled, and you get numb to the idea that our time is limited and finite in this lifetime, in this dunya. So I couldn't believe it, but I was like, he was kind of like a little bit compromised in his health in the later part of his life. So I accepted it, obviously, and I was like, subhanAllah, I made some dua. And within like a few hours, bro, me and my dad were like on a plane headed to Bangladesh. And I was like, how the hell, like, what is happening? Like, I went through all the things that I've gone through, and I'm going through all this hell. And I finally came home just to chill. And then now there's this. So I'm like, this is great. This is like the icing on the cake. So then I finally landed in Bangladesh. Bro, sleep deprived. I've already been up, and then we took the flight. Now it's like mentally, physically, spiritually just exhausted. And then I see his body, subhanAllah, that they had him on the while he was laying down, and they washed him, and they prepared him for the burial. And bro, subhanAllah, like just seeing him lifeless, and having intrusive thoughts like he's gonna open his eyes now, he's gonna look at me finally, but he just didn't. This was real. And then they had my dad and myself lower his body to the grave. First of all, bodies are heavy, bro, especially when they're like just either like a corpse or in a coma. Like, you don't realize how heavy someone is until then. And as I'm lowering him into this grave, and then we cover him with the soil, and I look around us, and everyone's just crying, everyone's just emotional, bro. And in that moment, I think of how insignificant all the things that I occupied my mind with and told myself, oh, I'm going through hell. It's like, bro, none of that matters. As I lowered him into the grave and covered him with all the dirt and all that, I like picked myself up, and we, gathered ourselves and tried to stay composed in that very emotional time. I'm going, to the car after I buried him, because I was really emotional, and I just needed to sit down. And all these people from all the villages, bro, in Bangladesh who came to the funeral, the janazah, they were just coming up to me and they were just like, "Oh, did you know your grandfather?" You know, and obviously, may Allah forgive me for even saying these things, but there's benefit in this. You know, they're coming to me and they're like, "Did you know your grandfather did X Y Z in our village?" And someone else was like, "Did you know he built this thing for us back then?" And there was someone else. He was like, "Oh, did you know like, you know, he had this one thing that he, you know, raised and did this?" And I was like, "He never told us about any of these things. Why did he not boast these things like everybody else would do? You know, like everybody else would post a video, you know, we built this one Islamic school, we, you know, built this one well and this." It's like he didn't keep any of these things you know, open for everybody to see and for, and obviously there's more things. I'm not going to mention all these things to try to keep it anonymous, but it was in that moment that I realized he truly, Allah yarhamu, had a priority in wanting to serve the Muslim community and not have it be something that was known. And you know how we always say, like, when you're dead, all you got is your deeds to show for it? It was like everything just clicked in that moment for me, bro. SubhanAllah, like Canyon, I looked at how all the things that he did, it was like speaking for himself. It was speaking for itself. It wasn't like he didn't need to say anything or leave a receipt behind or anything like that. There's nothing, bro. There was no like trophy or award or anything except for the impact that he actually left in the communities. And then I realized how fragile life is. And this is something reminded of myself first and foremost. I hope I can do this because we're so consumed in the dunya, bro. I realized in that moment I've been going to the mosque every day for my 5 daily prayers. This is something that as Muslims we should do, but it's hard to do it. Let's be honest sometimes. But in Muslim countries, bro, you just hear the adhan. I'm sure in Pakistan you can relate to this, right? You hear the adhan, and then before you know it, you're already at the masjid, and it's like, how did I get here? But it's like, why would you not? No one just really prays at home. And this might be, you know, misogynistic, but I don't really care. And you know, back home, there's a saying, "What are you gonna pray at home? What are you, a woman?" So it's we all go to the mosque. Obviously, as men, we're it's fine for us to go to the mosque. For women, it's a little bit different. They get more reward for praying at home. So we go, and I'm going there for almost all the daily prayers every day for like a week, right? And bro, the amount of taqwa or consciousness that I had in that state, all the problems that I had in the dunya, work, business, all the things that I couldn't like figure out solutions to, it was like the solutions didn't come to me, but I realized the solutions were already out there. But we have these like tinted shades over our eyesight and our vision that's just a product of the dunya that we live in. And that's when I realized, like, subhanallah, how powerful a clear mind is. And obviously, since then, I've never had like that much time in a masjid that I spent in a consecutive period of time. May Allah allow me to deliberately add that into my life again soon, inshallah. But yeah, that was something that really changed my perception on things. And subhanAllah, like just being around death. I believe the Prophet even mentioned, like, remember often the destroyer of all pleasures, which is death, and be around the masajid and be around graveyards more too. You know, just not do anything weird like the grave worship and some of the things the Sufis do, but go there and like just be in that environment. Surround yourself and kind of just keep that very moist on your tongue. This idea that life is short, and when you surround yourself more with that, it keeps you on your A game because you realize your time might be up tomorrow.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. I have a closing question that I do on this podcast. So that microphone, say you could speak into it and every single person in the world would hear what you say. What would you say?
Before I tell you that, bro, do you have a slogan for your podcast?
Balancing the dunya and the akhirah.
We gotta change that, bro. You gotta make it no small talk because there has not been a single question here, bro, that is something that I could just readily answer. Subhanallah, this is a very very deep question. If I could speak into this microphone and have everybody in the world listen to what I'm saying, Subhanallah, because now there's consequences, bro, behind what I say. I would I would tell everybody listening to this podcast to spend some time reflecting every single day into who you are and if you really are who you think you are in your mind. Because we tell ourselves all the time that we're this, we're that, and we're a good Muslim, and we're such a good human being, and this. And it isn't until you have time to actually reflect to yourself that you realize that you're actually not. You're not all you think you are. We make no excuses for everybody else, but we have ready a list of all the excuses for ourselves. And having this time on a day-to-day basis is so powerful because it allows you to have more presence in your salah, in your prayers. It allows you to be a better husband, father, son, or whatever other actual important titles that you have. Servant of Allah, member in the masjid, someone that serves the community. You can be a better person in all these attributes. You can be better in your finances and in your business because you will actually have the clarity, which is extremely important. You will be more proficient in your memorization of the Quran and other things that are important to your deen. Every aspect of your life that you can imagine will become better if you give yourself a little time. You will connect dots into why you are divulging in sins that you feel like you can't overcome. You will finally realize why you have a fear or an anxiety or a phobia that you have that they told you cannot overcome that and you need medication for that. Not that I'm anti-medication, but there's a time and a place. Majority of us just do not spend time with ourselves, especially in nature, outside. We tell ourselves journaling is going to be on our phone while we type. We tell ourselves, listening to some fresh air is putting on a white noise video on YouTube. No one really spends time outside anymore. And spending that time by yourself in isolation, whether it's in nature or not, but the more important thing is that you just do that every single day. And you will realize how much better your life gets. You don't need to buy any fancy course. You don't need to travel to Umrah, to be in front of the Kaaba to then find Allah, right? To find your Islam. You don't need to do any of these grand things in a world that tells you it is only a transaction that'll give you the solution. I'm telling you, it's not. You just need yourself, and the answers are already within. Allah has breathed His ruh into you. It is very important to understand that. Atheists, all these brain surgeons, and I challenge any of them, bro. Look at a brain scan, look at an MRI. Find me where the soul is. Find me where the spirit is. If we're just a bunch of cells, what is this consciousness that we have? Show me where it is. This spirit, this soul that we have, it knows everything that you are struggling with, and it knows everything that you can control, and it knows everything that you can't control. And all we need to do is just take a step back and then connect to it more. And the world that we live in detaches your mind, body, and spirit so much, bro. With the food, with the instant gratification, with the notifications, with the this due here, this bill over there. I have a deadline for my essay here. Bro, just take a step back and give yourself the time that you finally deserve. After this video, literally take 5 minutes. Like, subhanallah, wallah, like, I don't think your life is going to be that different if you do this. Like, everything can wait, bro. You can text your girl later. She's not going to die if you don't every 2 minutes. And just take 5 minutes and just literally detach from everything and just think to yourself about everything that you have going on in your life. Just reflect, just breathe. And just do that every single day. And wallah, just watch how your life changes.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you for the conversation.
Absolutely, bro. I enjoyed this too. I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, inshallah.